Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Anna and I am the owner and creator here at All Things All Happy. And in today's tutorial, I'm going to be working on a Casino Royale Tumbler. It is very different from anything that I've made before. I've definitely made a lot of errors that I'm going to show you how I fixed them. But all in all, I love the way it turned out. I'd love your feedback on what you think about it. And that's it. So join me as we get this tumbler started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our tumbler. This is a 32 True from the Steel Magnolias, and I'm just going to scuff this up a bit. Then we're just going to clean it with some alcohol. Just wipe off all that dust. Definitely want to wipe down the work area. All right, so I have these two prints. And these are from Papa's Promos. All right, so I want to put this on like a handkerchief. So I am going to measure this, but I do want it to meet here. So what I'm going to do is just bring it down just a little until it meets. So I'm actually just going to fold it down a little bit because I can kind of see. So we're going to cut 2.5 from this side and 2.5 inches from this side. So I'm actually going to all right, so I'm sure there's an easier way of doing this, but what I wanted to do was cut a handkerchief portion. So I just measured 2.5 inches down this way, 2.5 inches down this way, and then I'm just gonna cut right across it. So I just made my little line on this side, and I'm just gonna cut right down the center of it. All right, so this is kind of what I was looking for. All right, so I'm gonna cut 3 inches of this casino paper, and I'm going to put it on kind of overlapping in a way because the bottom of the tumbler is tapered, and so it will not go on straight. So I'm just going to put it on where there's excess at the bottom. Because what happens is if I wrap it around, it's just gonna go like this. I'm just gonna apply it all haphazardly because I'm gonna end up cutting the bottom, and I'm gonna cut up at this portion up here so that it's even all the way around. But because the tumbler is tapered down here, this is the only way I know how to do it. I just want to make sure it's nice and flat, no bubbles, because when you apply your resin, you're going to see those bubbles. So just take your time and just make sure it's nice and flat everywhere. So I'm going to cut this excess off here. And then this here, because I'm not going to need this either. Because what I want to do is just make sure that just this portion here has vinyl. Because the rest of it, I'm going to cut off. I just want to push the bubbles out. And so I'm pushing it either down or I'm pushing it up and out. Okay. So here is where my vinyl overlaps. It's on an angle. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna cut it right down the line just in case. I'm just gonna overcut it a bit. So here is where it overlaps, and I cut up until here. So I have this little extra flap for now. Okay, just wanna remove that piece. We're just gonna take this and we're just gonna fold it down. All right, I have this. I got this on Amazon. It's got a little razor there. And after you push this down flat, because you want it flat, you're just going to push the tumbler up against it, and we're going to turn it slowly. Just want to remove it slowly because you want to definitely make sure that it cut all the way around. Otherwise you're going to pull your vinyl, and we don't want to do that. So now the bottom is even. And so now it looks uneven because this is uneven, but the bottom is even. And now we're going to cut around here. I'm using electrical tape, and I'm just going to put it around evenly. Nice and straight. I am pulling on the tape, making it like very taut. All right, and then I'm just going to go around with my little cutting knife here. I'm just going to edge the black tape. And always remove it slow, because you never know where you might have missed it. I'm just going to leave this on because I'm going to paint this little hump here so that I can glitter it. So I'm just going to leave this on for now. And what's going to happen is I am going to line it with vinyl afterwards. Between the vinyl and the glitter, I am going to put like a really thin strip, so it's okay if it's a little uneven. All right, so once we have our vinyl lined up, I want the edge, the apron part to go here where the other vinyl overlaps down on this side. That's where I'm going to put this piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to begin laying the vinyl. So once you get that one piece nice and flat, then we're just gonna begin rolling it back and pushing it flat. We don't want any bubbles. I just want it to evenly meet up. Okay, and you definitely want to make sure that the vinyl is nice and flat. I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to get out all the bubbles that I see that are underneath the vinyl. I'm just going to keep pushing until they are gone. I'm just going to tape here. It is right above my hump. I'm just going to go all the way around the tumbler. Actually, no, I'm going to go all the way up until here. And I'm just going to cut that off. I'm going to cut the excess off on this side. Use my cutter, and I'm just going to go along the black tape and then just cut the excess vinyl off. At this point, I decided that I did not like the look of that little handkerchief portion hanging over, so I decided to remove it. I'm also going to do on this side where the two pieces here meet, I'm just going to go ahead and just cut it. Right where it overlaps, I'm just going to cut it. And I'm just going to go around and make sure that this vinyl is actually nice and flat everywhere. If you have any pocket bubbles anywhere, just get something really sharp and then you can poke a hole in it. And then you can actually push out the bubble. And it'll lay flat. But if you do this, you need to make sure you use a sealer. Otherwise the resin will get inside that little hole and get underneath that vinyl and let it lift. So definitely not something we're looking to do. Okay, once you think you've gotten all the bubbles out, I would let this sit for about an hour and then come back and take a look, because chances are you probably missed one and you don't want to do all that work and find that you missed one, and then you're gonna really see it underneath the epoxy. So just let it sit and come back. All right, so I let this sit for about an hour and I am back, and it actually looks good. Anywhere where I did poke and it was still a little bubbled is nice and flat. So that's another reason why you really want it to sit for a little bit, because those areas that you did poke will flatten even more. So what I decided to do, since I let this sit, I was thinking I'm going to glitter here, and I was going to glitter all this one color. But now I'm thinking here, I want it to be a roulette. Okay, so what I did was I took 2 pieces of electrical tape, and I don't want to move them because they're already the way I want them to be, but I'm going to show you what I did. And I just measured it here on my measuring, put it side by side, overlap each other until it gets to 3. Okay, then you want to peel that off, and then I just laid it right on the edge of the vinyl that I placed down here, and I just put it down flat. Did one on this side, and I did one on this side, so that I am looking at 3 centimeters evenly all around. So I have 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little roulette look here. So I'm just gonna begin painting. All right, so I got my red, my black, and my green. I use the Americana paint. You can get it from Michael's, or you can get it from Walmart. So before I begin painting, I'm gonna use my electrical tape, and I'm just gonna edge off this area here. And I'm gonna do the other side as well. And I'm also gonna do the bottom. All right, so now I'm gonna begin painting. Just wanna get this around evenly. All right, so we're just gonna let that dry. I am gonna put another coat of the red on when this is dry. You definitely want it to dry first before you put your second coat, because as you're applying the second coat, it will take off the first coat. So just let it dry. And then I just use my a baby wipe, and I put the brush in there just to keep it moist and doesn't dry out, so I can reuse it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint this one green. I'm just gonna let that dry as well. And then I'm not gonna paint the black here until I'm done with the glitter, because then I can remove it. So I have to glitter this first before I can paint this black. So we're just gonna let this dry. All right, once it's dry, I'm just gonna go back in and then just reapply another coat. I just wanna get a nice solid coat all around. So I'm just gonna let this dry. Our tumbler is now dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and I am going to Mod Podge on some green glitter. I'm just gonna go ahead and sprinkle on some Money Money. This is an extra fine glitter. And I did totally forget to cut that one piece of vinyl, so I still need to do that at the casino. I just need to cut that a little thinner. We are going to Mod Podge the base. I'm going to sprinkle on some Blazing 7s. This too is an extra fine glitter. Just gonna tap some of that excess off. And then we're just gonna Mod Podge this big area here. And I always like to say that Mod Podge dries quick, so you gotta move quick. So we just want a nice even coat, nothing thick anywhere. And then we're just gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna put on a second coat. All right, now I'm gonna go in with my second coat. And just wanna remove any of the excess glitter. When you put on your second coat of the Mod Podge, it doesn't dry as fast as the first coat. So I'm able to do the bottom and the side here all at once before I glitter. Then I'm gonna go in with the second coat, and you just wanna get that everywhere. If I wanna tap off any excess, I'm just gonna let this sit for a little bit, and I'm just gonna clean up the glitter, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna peel off the tape. All right, now that we have our second coat done, even before it dries, you just wanna go ahead and you want to remove the tape. Okay, once you have the tape all removed, I forgot to cut this off. I left it on because I wasn't sure how much of it I needed, and I totally forgot to cut it off. So I'm going to try and do it right now. All right, once you have that cut off, I'm just gonna go ahead and I am going to paint these two sections black. These two sections here black. So I'm just gonna slowly paint it because I took my tape off already. All right, so we're just gonna let this dry. We're actually not gonna need a second coat of that black paint. So I'm just gonna let this sit and dry. All right, once our black is dry, I'm just gonna go in and we are going to Mod Podge that. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna Mod Podge both sections. We're gonna sprinkle on some blackjack. This is an extra fine glitter as well. I'm just gonna let this dry. All right, I'm just gonna go back in and I am going to re-Mod Podge both colors, both black squares, and then I'm going to reapply the glitter, and I am going to set this to the side to totally dry. I probably won't do anything with it until tomorrow. All right, so once we're done, we just want to go around and make sure that there's no excess glitter sitting on the vinyl. I'm just going to brush it all off, all around. And what we're going to do is we are going to seal the vinyl. So let me show you how I do that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the CCDIY's Quick Coat. It's a sealer, and we're just going to go around, and I'm going to put this all over the vinyl, and I'm just going to coat it because I did put poke holes in it, and once the holes are laying, once it's flat and you don't know where the bubble is anymore, it's going to be hard to find the hole. So for me, to prevent the tumbler from not coming out right, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to seal all of it with the sealer. You can also use a spray sealer. You can go outside and spray that on your tumbler, and you can also spray it directly onto your glitter so the glitter doesn't move either. So I am going to just go ahead and I am going to seal this vinyl. I'm going to do the top and I'm going to do the bottom. Once I'm done, I'm just going to let this sit for about a couple hours and let it dry. All right, so what I decided to do after looking at this for a bit was I wanted to continue the roulette all the way around this area here. So what I'm gonna do is I am just going to carefully cut a line across from one side to the other. And I don't need to remove all of it because it will alternate black and red, but I do need to take some sections out. So I'm just gonna cut, just eyeball straight across. It's going right on that mound. Let me just make sure. So we are about 3 centimeters all around. So we're going to do 3 centimeters of the red, and we're going to keep it. So I'm just going to make a mark 1, 2, 3 right here, because we are going to keep that. When you're cutting it, I'm not sure if you can see it from what I'm doing, but you can actually see the marks. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep going around. So my next section, I'm going to mark 3. And you want to use at the top of, you want to use the area at the top of the mound. And we're going to cut that 3. And we're going to go down. And then we're just going to, hopefully, easily, not really sure. Oh, yeah, look at that. Scoop it right off. And you want to do it carefully because you do not want to tear off any of the glitter next to it. All right. And then we're just going to continue on and do another 3 centimeters. And that we're going to keep red. This one's going to be black. So let's make sure it's nice and cut. And then we're going to do another 3 centimeters. And then here, I just want to make sure that we're going to have 3. We actually have a little less than 6 across. So I'm going to make it a little smaller, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I'm just going to put tape all the way across it because I want to make sure that we are taking off what we need to take off. And I'm not going to apply a lot of pressure because I don't want any of the other piece to pull off. Just going to help me eyeball it and see if I'm cutting enough to make it even, since I'm doing it after the fact. All right, so what I'm noticing is the sections here, these need to be cut a little bit more. All right, so that is what I wanted to do. So now what I'm going to do is these silver spots here, I am going to paint them black, and then I'm going to put black glitter on them. You want to make sure that you do clean it up if there's any of the red glitter here at the bottom of what you just cut out. Just want to take that off and brush it out of the way. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to paint it black. So I'm going to let this dry. All right, once it's dry, I'm just gonna go ahead and add some Mod Podge. And then we're gonna add some blackjack. Just gonna brush off any of the excess. I'm gonna let this dry fully, and then I'm gonna put another coat on it. All right, I'm just going to reapply the Mod Podge, and then I'm gonna glitter it again. All right, it's done. I'm just gonna let this dry. All right, I'm just gonna begin pouring the epoxy. I'm using 30 mLs. I did 15 of part A and 15 of part B of the amazing quick coat from Illuminite. I'm just gonna spread this on evenly all the way around. I do want to note that after you finish adding your glitter and your tumbler is dry, you want to make sure that you brush off any of that excess glitter so that when you go to this step, the glitter does not spread all the way around like on your vinyl. You don't want like red glitter all over your yellow vinyl. So you definitely want to do that. You can also spray seal it if you wanted to. I didn't do that. I only brushed it really well. Once you have your epoxy on nice and even, I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of heat just to pop any bubbles that come to the surface. And then I'm just going to let this spin around for a couple of hours. All right, so our epoxy is ready. It's a little bubbly, but it's okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to begin pouring the epoxy. And one thing I do want to mention now that the first coat has dried is that I would definitely recommend spray sealing your tumbler before you apply the epoxy. I'm not sure why I didn't. I usually do. And for some reason I felt like, oh, it's going to be fine. It's not going to do that. I thought that I brushed off enough of it that it wouldn't spread. But it did. And it totally bothers me that there's like little specks on the vinyl. So I would definitely suggest spray sealing it and letting it dry for a couple hours before you begin pouring your epoxy. I'm just going to apply the epoxy all over the rest of the cup and just make sure it's nice and even. So if you do seal your tumbler before you apply your first coat, chances are you're not going to need a second coat of the epoxy. So you'll just do the one coat and you'll be good. And then you can go on to your next step. So what I did was I applied the epoxy, and as it was drying, I just kind of went back and just started scraping off the little specks of glitter that I saw that was bothering me. And so my epoxy is not as even as I would like, so I have to apply a second coat. Otherwise, you only need the one coat. All right, and once you have your epoxy laid evenly, I'm just gonna hit it with some heat, just to pop any bubbles that come to the surface. All right, and I'm just gonna let this spin around, and I actually just kind of hang back for about a minute or so and just make sure that there's no bubbles, and if there is, I just poke at it with a toothpick. That's it. I'm just going to let this spin around for a few hours. All right, now that the tumbler is dry, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean the edges. And we're just going to take off any of the excess resin at the top of the tumbler. Once I remove the resin for the top, I just lightly sand it. And if the tumbler is rough anywhere else, you can go ahead and sand that. This is actually pretty smooth. I would just sand any area that you're gonna put tape on or any type of vinyl on. So like right here, just gonna rub that flat. Because I know I'm gonna put a piece of washi tape here. All right, so I'm gonna use some washi tape. I got these from Hobby Lobby.
You can get them at Michael's. It's usually where the journals are. If you don't have washi tape, you can just use vinyl. And you can make vinyl lines, and I probably use like 0.08. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna line in between the roulette numbers. And I'm just gonna put it right to the top of the line. And then I'm just gonna go around and I'm gonna do the whole thing. Now, if you remember, I did not make these even because I didn't know I was gonna do this all the way around until the very end. So now's the opportunity where you can kind of make them the same size. If your black square is larger than your red square, then you can overlap the black square a little bit more than you would the red square. And all I do is I push down the cutter and I just lift the washi. All right, so our little roulette sections are done. It's looking more like a roulette. And I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna line the back. Just gonna line here. And when laying this vinyl, the casino part of that vinyl, if it didn't lay flat for you, because it was difficult, because it is an angled tumbler, this is the perfect opportunity to fix it and make it look even. I'm just gonna slowly eye it and just make sure it lays even all the way around. Once I get to my overlap point, I'm just gonna push down the knife and pull the washi. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the edging here and then the edging right above the roulette numbers. All right, and I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna line it around evenly. Just take your time. And because the tumbler is curved here, the vinyl is going to wanna scrunch up. So you just slowly wanna go and push it down. So like you see here, these little bubbles, just wanna make sure they're nice and flat. Otherwise they will be very noticeable under the epoxy. And if it doesn't come out nice, just take it off and just redo it. All right, now that you have it flat, just use your finger and then just push it down all the way around. And now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do the top of the line. I usually start the washi tape on the back end of the tumbler. As you can see, that's where my line ends here for casino. So I usually keep all the cuts in the back of my tumbler. I'm just going around and I'm just hitting the top of these washi lines here. Just going right over the top of them. I'm just gonna push it down and cut it right off. There is like a really small overlap, I would say from about here to here, like really small. I'm just gonna angle this. So I'm gonna use the corner of the washi tape and I'm just gonna angle it. I'm just gonna cut that. All right. So what that does is it helps us align it better. So it's nice and edged here. And we're just gonna line it up. All right, so we just want to line it up as close as we can. And then we're just going to follow along the edging. And then we're just going to push that down and cut it perfectly right there. And then we're going to do the same thing with this side. We are going to angle it. And then I'm going to cut it. I'm just going to begin placing my numbers. And I just cut the numbers out. This is Times New Roman font. And I did it by 0.3 wide and 0.464 high. So I just kind of measured in here and just thought that's the size I'd like it. And we're just going to place the numbers inside the roulette squares. And I made the numbers based on the roulette table here. So I took the 0, and so now I'm going to do a 32 next to it, and that's how I do it. And then we have 32. I'm just going to go around, and I'm just going to place all my numbers. Totally looked at with this square being small because it only needs one number. All right, so my numbers are placed all around. All right, so I used white vinyl, and I wrote up this Life's a Gamble, roll the dice, and I made an offset as well. I was gonna just put the white, I don't know. I don't know, decisions. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the offset. Onto my offset. And sometimes this crap happens. All right, so I reprinted the Life's a Gamble, but I already weeded out my little dice before, and it's actually, this part of it is actually still good. So I'm just gonna use this. I'll just put it down in sections. Definitely wanna make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and just do the Life's a Gamble part. All right, let's try this one more time. All right, perfect. So now I'm gonna position my decal onto my tumbler. But I'm gonna have to take a look at it, so I'm gonna lift it up. All right, once you have your decal on, you just want to press it down. Make sure it's nice and flat. We don't want any bubbles under there because you're really not going to be able to get them out unless you take off the decal and reapply it. And the only reason why I'm holding this up here is because I don't want it to grab my washi tape there. So these little dice here, when I printed the image, these little dots were very small and they were really hard to weed and set perfectly. So what I did was I printed a few extra sets of the dice on a larger scale, and then I just swapped out the dots from the larger scale and I put them onto here so that one, you can see them better, and two, they would be easier to weed. So that's what I did there. All right, I'm kind of loving this. I'm not sure why, but the washi tape is kind of constantly lifting. If you used a vinyl, you definitely would not have this problem. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna seal it with some CCDIY's Quick Coat. Love this stuff. All right, so you don't need a lot. And you just wanna go, I'm just gonna do all the numbers right now. So I'm just gonna go and brush my numbers. You wanna make sure you're brushing in all directions. Up and down, side to side. I like to use this because I find that it prevents the vinyl from lifting when you're pouring epoxy. Sometimes it lifts, sometimes it doesn't, and I've had it lift. So now I just always use it and I've never had a problem. the washi tape as well. I'm also going to apply it to my decal. All right, so once you are done sealing it, I'm just going to let this sit and dry. All right, so I'm going to begin mixing my epoxy here. And I'm using 2 ounces. So I have a different cup here. I'm using 1 ounce of part A and 1 ounce of part B. If you have measuring cups that go up to 40 mLs, then I would do 20 of part A and 20 of part B. Mine only go up to 30. And unfortunately, if I am using this Flynn Sister Artist Cure, for some reason I need more than the 30 mLs. So I would use 40 mLs of this. And I don't have measuring cups that fit that much. And so the one I have here is in ounces. So it's 1 ounce A and 1 ounce part B. And I'm just going to mix that. All right, once your epoxy is nice and mixed, I'm just going to go ahead and begin pouring. This has a lot of bubbles in it. And I like to use small controlled amounts. All right, after you have it evenly spread, I'm just going to hit it with some heat just to help pop some of those bubbles. I'm just going to spin it the other direction. I'm just going to let this roll around for about 8 hours. All right, so I just want to show you real quick. This has been spinning for a few minutes because I did use the excess resin and I made 2 other things over here. But I am not liking the way that this is drying. It is very bumpy and I don't know why. And I am just going to remove as much of the epoxy as I can, and this is how I would do it. That's why I wanted to show you real quick, because I'm just not liking it and I don't want it to dry and then on all the areas that I have black, like here, it just wants to leave these little micro bubbles that for some reason don't want to go away, and I don't know why I had so many of them. Because I made sure that the temperature was right and I mixed it properly, and sometimes that happens, and with other brands it's okay. For some reason this brand is very temperamental. That's the word I'm going to use. It's very picky, and I think that I am not a fan of the pickiness. So if I was using a different brand like the Illuminite and there were little micro bubbles, after a few minutes of spinning, they'd be gone. But for some reason, this one, not too much. So I'm just going to do this for a few times. The epoxy is not dry yet, nor does it feel like it is like on the verge of drying, because you would feel that it's pulling. But this is what I would do if I didn't like the epoxy and I want to remove some of it. So I'm definitely gonna go over with another coat after this dries. But yeah, just wanted to show you. All right, my tumbler is now dry, and what I'm going to do is just give it a light scuff, very, very light, just because I don't know why I'm doing it, because I just don't want to lay another layer of a different resin directly onto here, only because I feel like this resin that I have on now is just not good. So I just want to scuff it up a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to do just like this, simple, just scuff it all around. Sanding it. Just going to clean it with some alcohol, just get off any dust, We don't want to mix that in with the epoxy. And what I noticed was that I wanted to do this gold line up here at the rim as well, and I didn't. And I think because maybe I looked back here and I was fine with it because it was just like a little bit of the silver showing. But as you get to the front, it's a little uneven. So I said I wanted to go across with the gold. So, perfect opportunity to do that. So I'm gonna line the tumbler with that gold. So right here, it's a little off. I'm just gonna line it where it's gonna edge the top of here, but it's gonna cover all this here. So you're still gonna see the silver at the top, but it won't be so much of the silver. It'll just be a little bit. I'm just gonna slowly line it. All right, once you're done lining, just gonna go around and just make sure any bubbles are nice and flat. We're just gonna go ahead and we are going to seal it because I like to seal everything. So we're definitely not gonna skip this step. And we're just gonna go around and make sure it's nice and covered. I guess it's a good thing that the epoxy failed because I would have completed the tumbler and then noticed that I forgot to put this trim on. I would have been upset. So, true believer, things happen for a reason. So, I guess I'm happy it failed. That's it. I'm just gonna let this dry for about 30 minutes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put my next coat of epoxy on it. All right, so we're back here again, and I mixed in 2 of these little containers because I wanted to do 45 mLs. So I did 30 in 1 cup, which was 15 of part A and 15 of part B. And then in my second cup, I did 7.5 of part A and 7.5 of part B, which brought me up to 15 on the second cup. So my measuring cup is not, it's either too small like this or it's the other size and it's just too big. So I figured let me just do it this way. I'll have 2 separate cups. I'm using the Amazing Clear Cast Plus from Illuminate. It's one of my favorites. I don't know why I don't just stick with this one, but I didn't. I see some people take the 2 cups and they pour it into 1 cup, but I never do that because I'm nervous that I might leave behind some of part A or some of part B, and then it just is not an even ratio. So it scares me to do that. I don't want to get to this step and then try it and then it messes up. So I'll just do it this way until I order some new cups. All right, once the epoxy is nice and clear, we're just going to begin pouring. And I like to use slow controlled amounts. And I just want to evenly coat the entire tumbler. And this epoxy, you only need 30 mLs. I did extra because I was nervous, but you only need 30 mLs. It actually is so nice and smooth. Just gonna hit it with some heat just to pop any bubbles that come to the surface. And I'm just gonna let it spin around for about 8 hours. All right, so now I'm doing another coat of the epoxy, and I'm using the Amazing Clear Cast Plus from Illuminate. I'm doing 25 mLs, 12.5 of A and 12.5 of B. And since this is our last coat, you do want to make sure the tumbler is nice and smooth everywhere before you put on your last coat. Mine was pretty smooth. I just buffed the rim of the base a little bit. All right, our epoxy is done. And I'm going to begin applying, and I'm just going to use small controlled amounts. And I'm just going to do this all over evenly around the tumbler. All right, once we have the epoxy nice and smooth everywhere, we're just going to add just a little bit of heat just to pop any bubbles that come to the surface. And we're just gonna let this spin around for about 8 hours.
So our tumbler is finally done. I have to say that I am loving the way it turned out. It came out really good. I know that, it's just so pretty. I know that we made a lot of changes along the way, but if you watch the video, you can incorporate those changes before you even get to the step that I decided to change it. But if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the section down below. And that's it. I hope you love it as much as I do. And talk soon.